We're going to go ahead and get started. Delegate Bourne is headed down, we're told, but we've got a lot of you here. We've got a lot of folks here that have other commitments. So the first thing that I would like to do is thank you all for being here. This is a very important issue. This is an issue that we've been working on for a number of years, as you well know, and we are just very grateful to have had the support over time that we've had to move this forward. So I'm just going to introduce the law enforcement that's here. Law enforcement is absolutely critical to any traffic safety measure. Dana Schrod with the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police is a strong partner in all of our traffic safety initiatives, so we really appreciate our law enforcement. So what we have here today, we have Sergeant Mike Corey with Newport News Police Department, Lieutenant Matthew Johnson with Newport News Police Department, Mark Siegel with Hanover Sheriff's Department, Tony Callahan with Ashland Police Department, Travis Christian with Petersburg Police Department, John Landfair with the Chesapeake Police Department, Sergeant Exo Falero with the Newport News Police Department, and Chief Will Smith with the Richmond Police Department. So I don't think you need any further introduction. I'm going to go ahead and have the chief speak.
Thank you. Now, I think the reason she wants me to speak first is because I talk really slow, so it gives Delegate Bourne a lot of time to get here. So again, good morning. It's my pleasure to be here. This is a legislative package that I am in full support of. It's something that the City of Richmond is in full support of. As you may know or may not know, the City of Richmond joined two other localities this past fall in passing legislation that basically mimics this for the City of Richmond. It passed unanimously through our process, and we are very strongly in support of it. When we look at the statistical data that we've seen in the City of Richmond, in 2018 we had over 950 accidents that involved distracted driving. In 2019, that number was over 1,000. So we continue to see increasing numbers of distracted driving incidents, which results in both fatalities and serious injuries. It shouldn't come as a great surprise to any of us that have children, because one of the very first things that we all talk about with our kids is make sure that you leave your phone out of your hand and don't text, don't call until you get to your destination. And yet we as an adult society tend not to obey our own advice. So again, we are in very strong support of this. We see this as a very positive opportunity to improve the safety of our traveling public, those who are pedestrians on our sidewalks, and our cyclists that use our many streets. Thank you.
Another critical component to what we do down here at the General Assembly, and actually in the community, in changing behavior and getting our word out, as we work with victim families. And we are so blessed to have some amazing folks that we work with who give media interviews, they go speak at schools, they write blog posts, they do any number of things to help get the word out about the importance of safe driving. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce them, and we have a couple that will speak to us today. So we have Melanie Clark. Melanie's husband Brad was killed he's a firefighter that was killed on Interstate 195. With her is Jesse Smith. He is a firefighter in Hanover. We have Joy Rowley. Joy's son Kyle was killed, and we have Joy's sister and daughter. And Joy's son Kyle was killed up in Northern Virginia in Senator Sorvel's district. We have Patty Krasuski. Patty is here somewhere. Patty here is Patty's daughter Lainey was killed on River Road, and many of you who are from this area know of her because of the issues around, of course, that horrible situation, but also around the ghost bike situation here. We have Christina Dempsey. Christina is behind me, apparently. Christina's sister and two nieces were killed in a crash, a distracted driving crash. Christina has walked these halls many, many, many times. Her father is former Sheriff Steve Dempsey from King George, and she also has established 3 ribbons for 3 reasons. And finally, we have Meredith Spees. Meredith lost her mom this year in Chesterfield. Meredith's mom was killed by a dump truck driver who was texting and driving, and her mom was yet another one who was in the greetings. So I'm going to switch things up. Delegate Bourne is here. So we had just introduced the victim families, Delegate Bourne, and we'll go ahead and let you share some remarks, and then we'll have the family speak if that works.
That works for me.
Okay, super.
Good to see you. Hey. Good morning. First of all, let me just say apologies for being late. I was chairing the subcommittee. We were dealing with some firearm legislation, but similar to that, this bill really is about public safety. Too many people are being affected, being killed, being harmed. Families are being tormented by distracted driving and those accidents that result from that. For a couple years now, we have worked to address this and make distracted driving, texting while driving, outlawed in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We were very close last year, and I believe this year we will get across the finish line. This bill is quite simple. It bans the use of a handheld device while you're driving without a hands-free device or Bluetooth. And while we want to make sure that everyone is safe and that distracted driving goes down rather than up, I, along with members of the Legislative Black Caucus, had other concerns. And we've worked with the stakeholders, we've worked with law enforcement, we've worked with our colleagues to really try and address those so that going forward, any unintended consequences are nil, if any. And those would be to make sure that we have a public education campaign so that folks really do understand that the law is changing and what they will and won't be allowed to do. That means that we're going to collect data to make sure that this law and these laws are not disparately impacting communities of color and certain people. Finally, we are going to delay the enactment date. Give people 6 months to get used to, get up to speed, and get educated about the new law. I am so excited and so proud to be working on this with so many great folks, many of whom are standing behind me. And so rather than continuing to make you all listen to me, I think it's more impactful to make sure that we hear from folks who unfortunately have been impacted by distracted driving. And so at this point, I'll turn it over to who? Oh, sure. You never want to deny Senator Servell the opportunity to speak.
I appreciate you all being here today to listen on this important safety issue, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what brought me to the issue and about the efforts that we've undergone to get us up to this point. And then I guess after I talk, some of the victims will speak. I've been serving in the legislature now. This is my 11th term. I was elected in 2009, and shortly after I was elected, by the way, I'm a practicing lawyer. I do criminal defense as part of my practice, traffic work as part of that, and I defend people in court every day who's charged with traffic offenses. I also do personal injury work and some other areas. And about, I think it was in 2011, 2012 time frame, Joy Rowley and her husband John came to see me because of their situation with their son Kyle. Kyle was 18 years old. He was he was in the summer while he was working during the summer during college, and the Rowleys live out in the Herndon area of Fairfax County. Actually, not in my district, but in Fairfax County, right on the Loudoun County border. And Kyle had been working at a fast food restaurant, and he was driving home that night on Route 7, and his car ran out of gas as he was coming up Route 7 on a big long straightaway part of Route 7, and his car came to a stop about maybe about 20 yards in front of a stoplight, and he turned on his hazards and he got out to push his car off the road to get it off. And while he was pushing his car, there was another car that was behind him, had about, I would say, 500 to maybe 1,000 yards, 500 to 750 yards of clear straight pavement, 10 at night, 3 lanes of asphalt, no other cars in the road, and car struck him from behind at full speed without braking. His car sitting on the side of the road with his hazards on. Kyle was killed instantly. He was thrown. Another car behind that other car ended up striking him after he was on the road. The car that hit him flipped. When they finally got to the driver, they asked him what happened. He said he didn't have a clue. He couldn't remember anything. When they The accident made absolutely zero sense to law enforcement. When they pulled the guy's phone and did a forensic on it, they found that he'd basically been texting consistently from when he left his ex-wife's house doing a custody exchange where had re-engaged with her otherwise, and they'd been texting about what they'd been doing for the 15 minutes between Leesburg up until the point where Kyle was struck and killed. Kyle was then they brought a case against the gentleman in General District Court, and because at the time Virginia's texting while driving statute was not a primary offense, but it defined an offense, the judge refused to convict the driver of reckless driving and dismissed the charge against him, and the person was never convicted of anything. And it was that year that myself and Delegate Ben Klein now Congressman Ben Klein introduced legislation to make texting while driving a primary offense and make it clear you could also be convicted of reckless driving. That bill passed. But at the time, I couldn't get my colleagues to go full hands-free. I thought hands-free was the right way to go at the time, but they didn't want to do it. And so we have this statute on the books right now that says it's illegal to drive while entering letters or numbers into your phone for purposes of communications, but it doesn't prohibit other kinds of activities, which we all know smartphones you can do today. So today, it's basically legal to drive your phone while playing Angry Birds or while browsing the internet or doing any of the other kinds of functions you can do while looking at your phone while you're driving. And it's got to the point where law enforcement will not charge this anymore because they can't prove exactly what people are doing with their phone unless they admit to it, which often people don't. So right now we have a law on the books which is completely unenforceable. And from my perspective, texting and driving, handheld phone use while driving has basically become an epidemic. The Virginia Tech Transportation Study said the average text takes your eyes off the road for about 4 seconds, and that's the average, some more, some less. But at 60 miles an hour at 88 feet a second, 4 seconds at that speed is basically driving the equivalent of a football field with your eyes closed. And that's why today we've seen accidents and deaths and injuries rising in this country for the first time in 50 years over the last 4 years. It's completely contrary to the national trend. And all you got to do is look to your left or your right while you're driving. There's about a 50% chance you'll see somebody with a phone in their hand. I saw a tractor-trailer driver with his phone in his hand the other day when I was driving down here. It's completely out of control, and it's an epidemic. It's been fixed in other states, and we need to do something about it before more people are killed, and we don't need to keep having these press conferences. So I'm proud to stand with the Delegate Bourne, who's been very useful with trying to get this bill passed for the last 4 years. Last year, the bill passed the Senate, I think 36-4. And but it got killed in a conference committee. We have a different courts committee chairman, and we're going to have a different conference committee this year. And this year, I think we have a really excellent chance of getting this bill passed and made law. And so I'm happy to stand here with these advocates and make it happen. So thanks for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to Janet. And I'm going to sneak out for some meetings, but thank you for being here.
We have one more legislator, one more bill sponsor here with us, and that's Delegate Willett, who's right behind me. There you go.
Hi, Janet. Thank you. I am new to the legislature, but not new to this issue. For years, I've driven by ghost bikes, too many of those. As a driver, as a cyclist, as a runner, pedestrian, these are completely preventable tragedies, and you've heard stories, you'll hear more stories from the families affected by this. So I am thrilled to be standing with my colleagues, including Delegate Bourne, to support this legislation, and we're going to get this done and make things better on the roads in Virginia. Thank you.
Delegate Bourne, I feel like I'm doing your job here.
Okay. Let me step on in then. All right.
I'm sorry.
That's
so,
okay.
So we have Christina Dempsey
Okay.
and Meredith Spies are going to speak.
Okay. All right. Well, back in front of the microphones. So now we're going to hear from Christina Dempsey and her father, Sheriff Steve Dempsey. Christina, her dad, lost her sister, daughter, and 2 nieces in a distracted driving crash. Christina created the organization 3 Ribbons for 3 reasons and speaks to teens all across the Commonwealth about the dangers of distracted driving. Christina is also a professional firefighter at Quantico. And so we thank her for being here today. We thank her for her service as a firefighter, and we want to stand with her so that we can help prevent any other family from going through what she and her family went through. So without further ado, Christina and Sheriff Dempsey.
Daddy's not here.
Oh, Daddy's not here? Okay, all right.
Good morning. On August 27th, 2013, my sister Bethany, her boyfriend Michael, his son Mike and my niece Lauren and Mike's son or daughter Abby were traveling home from the airport. They were in stop and go traffic going about 4 to 5 miles an hour when they were rear-ended by a 2000 International flatbed lumber truck that had a crane attached to the back of it. He was doing 55 miles an hour and never stopped, never hit the brakes. Caused a chain reaction. 6 other vehicles were involved in the accident, had the road shut down for hours. They were able to determine that he was distracted for 12.6 seconds in the reconstruction. As a result, Mike and Michael did survive the accident but had serious injuries. My sister and my niece Lauren, they were pronounced on the scene. Abby, she was pronounced en route to the hospital. Since 2015, I have been coming to the General Assembly to support bills on traffic safety, hands-free driving, and the move-over laws. In my years of being in the public safety, I have seen drastic changes in the people's driving behaviors. I watch more now than ever. It took losing my sister and my nieces to stop using my phone, to stop eating and drinking on my way to work in the morning. You know, putting chapstick on, opening bottles. Simple things that take your eyes off the road. But it took me losing them to stop doing all of it. So as Ms. Janet said, I travel all over Virginia and speak to school systems, with court systems, anybody that'll listen. Just to make sure that we do not have to, like Senator said, stand up here at this press conference again. I share my story all the time. And it's been 6 years, and I can tell you that it doesn't get any easier. But I'm not the only family. There are so many families that can't stand up here and talk about it. But what else can we do? We have to support the bill. How many more lives have to be lost? How many more nieces, sisters, parents, spouses have to die before we get a bill passed to where we can hold people accountable for their actions? Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's okay. Thank you. Next, we will hear from Meredith, who lost her mom this year in Chesterfield when a dump truck driver lost control and killed her mother while he was texting. So Meredith?
No, I got it. Thanks for helping us. Hi, good morning, everyone. My mother was a wonderful woman, and she was a grandmother. I've got 3 small children. My youngest was only 4.5 months at the time of her death. On top of losing family and my loss as her daughter, the state of Virginia has a great loss. My mother dedicated her life for the past 30 years as a volunteer firefighter and EMT across the state. She was part of ODEMSA. She was part of the Old Dominion EMS Alliance. She was also an instructor. She loved what she did so much. She taught others how to do the same. On February 13th of 2019, she was driving to visit friends, and a man that was headed back to his office driving a dump truck was looking down at his phone, texting someone about a Valentine's Day gift for his girlfriend. And his dump truck ran off the road, and instead of staying in the ditch, he overcorrected and hit her head on, killing her instantly.